Hello, everybody. My name is Mike Shelah. I am Director of Marketing and Business Development for Advantage Industries. We are a cybersecurity-focused managed IT company located in what I like to call the heart and soul of Maryland in Columbia, Maryland, in Howard County. And today's conversation is a valuable one for business owners and business leaders because I believe everybody wants to know, well, how can I get the best value for my business dollar? And I think equally, there are plenty of companies out there that are spending money that isn't necessarily in their best interest. They have good intent, but they don't always get the job done with the money that they're spending. And my friend, my strategic business partner, Daniel Covell, is going to talk about that today. He is one of the managing partners of CG Moneta Consulting. So, Daniel, thank you so much for your time in this conversation today. We're looking forward to it.
My pleasure. I appreciate you having me. How are you?
I am doing well. Life is good, as I'm very fond of saying. And Daniel, you and I met not quite a year ago with the idea of mutually helping our customer base and being really strategic about it. And here's what I mean. As I said in the introduction, your company does an exceptional job of helping people reduce expenses the right way. And I really want to emphasize that. If you wouldn't mind, let's start there. So what is the philosophy for CG Moneta? What is the right way to reduce expenses? Let's talk a little bit about that.
That's a great question. CG Moneta ultimately is a B2B cost reduction firm. I think when you're looking at expenses, we keep it simple, but effective, right? We get the job done. We'll take a look at certain areas or specific services, and we'll reduce the cost of the existing service. So you're not changing providers. You're not sacrificing quality. We're able to negotiate lower rates through certain strategies that your typical CFO, your typical business owner is not going to employ. They're not going to know to employ, nor it may not be, time-wise for them. So at the end of the day, we take a hard look at specialized tax incentives. We'll take a hard look at corporate cost reduction. We'll take a hard look at telecommunication, cloud, and IT optimization, where we act simply as a broker to leverage a buying consortium. So when we're engaging our clients, we're providing as a first step, just a simple complementary cost reduction analysis to kind of see if there's any meat on the bones. It gives us an opportunity to determine which of our services make the most sense to move forward in. And we do that for a very good reason. We do that because at the end of the day, once we perform the service or the project, even if it's property tax mitigation and it's a 10-month project, if there's no benefit at the end, there's no fee. So we've developed a process that allows us to determine immediately which services will be most beneficial to cash flow, and then ultimately engage the client and provide those services and reduce the costs and increase the cash flow. So it's something that I've been a financial advisor for 20 plus years. We have a wealth management firm as well. So it's something that I've done for quite a while. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it's a great start.
Okay.
I want to pull out two things that you said that I think are real key takeaways for our audience. The first is you're bringing a depth of experience to the table that your average executive may or may not have. And to be clear about that, I talk to CIOs every day. I talk to directors of IT every day. They know their business exceptionally well. But the reason they decide to partner with me is because I'm bringing resources and experiences to the table that make them more well-rounded. So I'm not trying to replace them. I'm trying to make them look like heroes. And that's the perception that I get from what you just said.
That's exactly right. It's funny because initially one of the biggest pushbacks when we were discussing specialized tax incentives with CFOs and CPAs was, with the business owner, they were afraid that we were going to expose something they haven't done already, right? So the perfect example is with an engineer-based cost segregation study. typically a CPA is going to depreciate assets. That's part of the game. Even if they accelerate the depreciation just by IRC alone, the IRS wants to see an IP attorney, a construction engineer involved in the cost segregation process. So when we were bringing that to the table, we got some pushback, especially with the CPA saying, "Oh, we already got that covered," or "No, rest assured, Mr. Businessman or Mr. Client, we've already done that." And the bottom line is, if you're doing that type of a project, you're looking at $10, $20, $30, $40,000. So it's a very expensive commitment initially, without a guarantee of a return. Right? You have no idea what the ROI is going to be ultimately when you finish that type of a project. The way we approach it is just through a gain share model. We're able to provide the team of CPAs, IP attorneys, and construction engineers work with the CFO or the CPA and not have that money's at risk. Because at the end of the day, if there's no cash flow benefit, there's not going to be a fee. There's not going to be an obligation. I think for us, the ability to present even that just one service out of the portfolio presented that way was very strong. And we've since partnered up with many CPA firms providing those services either through a white label partnership or through a referral fee agreement. So for us, I think positioning the value proposition was key. And just being able to do that and do it effectively on a consistent basis is helped us scale, and being able to provide the services that we do. Look at valuations, look at the housing market, look at inflation, everything's up. Ultimately, because the market's cyclical, you're going to see a pullback.
It will go down.
Right? The Fed's going to, without a doubt, the Fed's going to raise rates. Inflation's going to pull back a little bit. Housing markets are going to drop. But the round of valuations are done. So property taxes are going to have to be looked at. That's one of our strong suits. That's one of our strong points. We've got a team that'll actually go to the hearings and take care of all the paperwork for you, right? And the same idea. Everything we do is built on gain share. So that being the case, there's zero risk, zero downside, and we're going to engage with a team of professionals, legal professionals, on your behalf, and there's no downside risk. So you're not going to do this a lot of the times, A, because of the amount of time it takes, B, because you're not sure what the result's going to be, and C, a lot of the times business owners, especially small business owners, don't realize what's there for them, what the potential is, especially from a cash flow standpoint. It's pretty tremendous. I wrote an article for the Orlando Medical News a few months back on the employee retention credit. And even at that point, there was a lot of small business owners not taking advantage of that credit. And I had a large response to that. And we've got a great team that provides the calculations for the ERC, and we do it for a lot of different CPA firms as well. But perfect example, we have a small roofing company in Florida that got back over $280,000. Small entertainment company out of Florida got back $306,000. It's a lucrative credit. So if you're not engaging either with your CPA or with CG Moneta Consulting, hopefully, you're missing out. So you can't just automatically assume that, hey, I wouldn't qualify, or I got a PPP loan, so I can't get the ERC, because that's no longer the case. That changed. Initially it was. It's no longer the case. So looking at our portfolio of services, we have, 90% of the times we're going to be able to determine beneficial cash flow for a small business. The average cash flow benefit, can be $250,000 for some of these small businesses. And that's a lot of money, especially when you're looking at where we are in the markets, where we are from a geopolitical standpoint, where we are in terms of, the market cycles of the stock market. We're at the point now where we could see a pretty big pullback over the next 12 months. So that additional cash flow can be the difference between life or death for a small business, between keeping the doors open, closing the doors. And then on the flip side, just from a margin standpoint, a profitability standpoint, some of the bigger companies, we teaming up with the CFOs, we're able to provide a buying consortium on the telecom side that can save them 40, 50%. A lot of Fortune 500 companies utilize it. And again, not a lot of people know that it's available or that you could do that. Not a lot of people know that you can leverage it. And the perfect example, again, managed service providers. They think, initially would think of us as the competition. We're not. We partner with MSPs. We partner with companies such as yourself, providing access to certain services that maybe the company didn't provide their clients prior, but now they can monetize, right? Now they have a stickier relationship with the client. They're providing more value. They're increasing profitability, and they're increasing their own cash flow. So the 3 flagship services that we provide, they provide quite a bit of value once you kind of break it down and you're able to show the client exactly what it's all about. Sorry about that. I did a whole lot of talking.
No, not at all. I love it. And a takeaway that I want to pull out from that for our audience is most of the people that are engaging in this content today, you sell something. Your business sells something. I don't care if it's a pen or if it's a business complex or it's a service. You provide a good or a service in exchange for money. And when we talk to prospective clients, people go, oh, well, I'm fine. And the immediate response to that is, how do you know? And the short version is, I trust my current providers to come to me and tell me when there's a deficiency. Mm-hmm. Right or wrong, that's how most businesses operate. So what I love about your strategy is the worst thing that a potential customer could waste with you is some time. Yeah. Because the flip side of that is they're going to get tremendous peace of mind. So let's say they go through an engagement with you and you do your due diligence and you come out the other end and go, you know what, Mr. or Mrs. Customer, you're doing everything right. And there aren't any opportunities for you to save money at this time. I'm guessing that's never happened. But if it did, the client now has great peace of mind to say these things are set in motion in the proper way. And for a period of time, whether that's 6 months or 12 months or 18 months, whatever their risk tolerance is, they can say, I can move on to other things. I can put this to bed that I've done my due diligence by partnering with an organization like yours, and I no longer have to worry about this because we do the same thing. And I have people say to me, I had a client this morning that said, well, we've already been through CMMC because they're a government contractor. And I said, how do you know? And they said, well, we did this and this. I said, okay, well, did you do this, and this? And there was this uncomfortable pause. Yeah. I said, okay, then you're not. And that's okay. Somebody else told you that you were, but they didn't go through tangible steps to show you. And that's what it sounds like your program does. It's tangible steps.
Absolutely, without a doubt. At this point, being a digital company, we've got brick and mortar in downtown Orlando, in New Jersey, and Pennsylvania, but we operate nationwide. We perfected the process so it takes very, very little time with a client. Maybe 15 minutes to complete the initial due diligence questionnaire. It's digital. It's on our website, www.cgmoneta.com. Anybody can access it and submit the questionnaire and get the process started, right? Businesses of all sizes, businesses in any industry. And once that's done, that's where we run the initial analysis. It's complimentary, and we kind of determine which areas we can provide that value. After that, it's literally opening up an email, clicking on a link, and uploading some documents that we need, and we're off to the races. So we understand the business owners are busy. We get that totally, and we respect that. So we made sure to build a process that's okay, that's fine. You can still benefit from our services, even if you've got very little time, because of the way that we've constructed everything. And it's worked out nicely, and it's not one of those things where we're digging through somebody's financials and we're not going through your balance sheets. We don't need any of that. We need some statements, some monthly statements, maybe maybe some property tax information or depreciation schedule. Nothing completely out of the ordinary, right? These documents, as a business owner, you have access to pretty quickly. So it's nice to be able to say, okay, well, once we engage, it's not going to take a lot of time. And this is why, these are the steps. This is what's going to happen. And this is built so we do all the heavy lifting. right across the board from beginning to end. And because we're able to provide the ease and the facilitation, and because at the back end there's zero risk, there's sometimes when I'm engaging a client and I'm saying, and I'm looking at them, I'm going, why haven't we started yet? What are you waiting for? There's $65,000 on the table right now that we're looking at, but sometimes it just baffles me. But I also understand, in today's day and age, business owners sometimes are leery, or they may not totally understand. Or I'm from Jersey, I talk fast. So maybe, sometimes I may lose somebody because I get, overexcited, and I'm very passionate in what we've built and what we do. So I think it's important, though, that it's understood that the process is super easy, super efficient, super clean, and really built for somebody that is busy and doesn't have a lot of time.
Daniel, I think you just touched on what should be the aha moment for the audience today, is running a business. And the level of success is, everybody defines success differently. Yeah. But running a business, you have to be supremely self-confident. You have to have a bit of an ego to do it. And the downside to that is you don't always have the humility to say, I don't know what I don't know. So it can be hard to look at a program like yours and say, well, I don't know if I need that or not. The short answer is every business would benefit from at least talking to you. Now, whether or not they end up doing business with you, that's another conversation. But I'm guessing, again, like my industry, where you have great success is with that business leader that says, you know what? I don't know what I don't know, but I think talking to you will help me get from point A to point B, and that's good for my business. If that's good for my business, that's good for the bottom line. If that's good for the bottom line, that means I have more money for my children, for my grandchildren. I have more money to pay out in bonuses to my staff. The line goes on and on. So I'm guessing that's the trend that you're seeing.
Kill me, sorry. You have to edit that.
Yep.
So when we first started the company, we had a meeting with a prominent car dealership in New Jersey, pretty big car dealership. And his CPA was in the room with us. And we're talking about the results of the specialized tax incentives, and particularly the cost segregation. I'll never forget it. We're talking, and after we were done, he stops and he looks at the CPA, and he used harsher language. And I'm going to tell you, he goes, "You better have bleep done this already," and he almost chastised the CPA. And I'm looking at him going, whoa, time out. And again, it comes down to, there's no way in that circumstance that CPA was going to be like, no, you're right, I didn't do it, the way that he approached him. But it's a perfect, it shows you that from a mindset that a lot of business owners think that, well, he should already have done this or thought about it. No, that's not the case. That's not the case. It's not their job to think about something like this. And in some cases, it would be irresponsible for them to recommend it. If I came to you and like, Mike, listen, there's a chance that we can get some really solid cash flow on the back end of this service, but you got to pay me $40,000, and I'm not 100% sure it'll work. I mean, on the flip side, it's all right. Well, hey, Mike, listen, there's
Are you
no
a Nigerian
real risk
prince? That sounds like a Nigerian prince story.
Right? Exactly. Or any of those crazy scams. But that's just the bottom line. I've seen some funny situations where there'll be another advisor in the room, and the business owner is just, oh, he's already got this, or he better have done this already. That's no. He didn't do it already. And if he did do it, it may have been his fiduciary responsibility may have not been met based on certain figures or circumstances. So you can't assume, I guess, is really the crux of it, right? And it's the old saying about assumptions. But I find a lot of business owners do assume, and they think that because the word tax is associated with a sentence, that their CPA's already got that, and they truly don't. Odds are your CPA is not going to spend a ton of time negotiating your property taxes down. Some of the bigger firms have construction engineers on staff, and they're great firms, and they do a hell of a job on the cost seg side, which is fantastic. You got it. But we've got still a portfolio full of other services that are going to benefit you So it's still worth sitting down and talking. Credit cards. How many companies give you, proprietary software and hardware that you can't intermix, right? You got to stick with them, and you've got a 3-year contract. So they've got you bent over the rate table. Well, there are options that you have there, and they can be deployed without having to switch providers or make any changes or do anything that would be detrimental to your service or the quality of your service. And we provide that. We're able to provide that cost reduction in a few key areas, including the credit cards. So it's been an interesting ride, and we've got quite a few stories. Some cool, some funny, but it just everybody seems to have a aha moment or oh moment. Yep. Once they realize what the process looks like and what the end result's going to look like, and that we're not trying to replace anybody. We're not fractional CFOs. We're not coming for your CTO's job. And I'm sure, like you said before, you see it too. And it's them understanding that the more brain power you have on your side of the table, the more resources you allow yourself to open up to, it's only going to benefit you. It doesn't make sense to close the door on something that you're not fully understanding or not taking the time to understand because you feel there's a conflict of interest with an existing relationship that you have. You don't know that. And 99% of the times there's not going to be. So, we're able to provide something and be respectful of, we have a couple CPA partnerships where they do the employee retention credit, no problem. We don't even mention it in our analysis because we understand that and we respect that. We appreciate that. And those are the kind of relationships we're looking to build too with outside COIs and, people in different industries. So that's where we stand there.
And I think you bring something to the table that a lot of businesses can use, but they're not necessarily aware of. And what I mean by that is, I know you've had this scenario. You're talking to a prospective client. You've got the president or the CEO of the company in there. You've got somebody from finance. You've got somebody from operations. And you've got somebody from IT all listening to the story that you're telling about what's going on and what you can do for them. And the whole time, one of the other heads is shaking up and down vigorously. Yes. Yeah. I've been saying this to the CEO for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. And we see that all the time. I'll be explaining our process and how we go through it to the owner, and the IT director standing in the background just nodding his head like, I've been telling him this for months. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because they need that outsourced third-party credibility to bring light to some things, because heavy is the head that wears the crown. I do not begrudge people that have to lead a company as a president or CEO or owner, because everything comes down to that individual, even in a partnership.
Absolutely.
It's difficult. And, if your CFO comes to you and says, we need to do this, or your IT person comes to you and says, we need to do this, your first response is, but do we? Do we really need to do this? And depending on how much the wheel squeaks, sometimes they give in, but a lot of times they ignore them. Not because they're bad people, but they're so focused on the business that they can't get through to make the business take a step forward. And I think that's at the core of the success of your program.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. We've seen that. We've been in meetings with Major League Baseball teams, the president of the team, and then the COO and the CTO, where we've seen that when we're discussing, wireless cost reduction for corporate wireless plans, and we've seen it when we're dealing with auto dealerships, which is a big vertical that we work with. We work with a big organization down in Florida that's got about 150 dealership members, and it's funny because even yesterday, I'm emailing one of the owners. They own five lots, and I'm like, hey, your documents. He emails me back. He's like, Dan, it's the last day of the month. We're trying to get the sales through. And I'm thinking, oh, my bad. I'm so sorry. So you also have to have a little insight, too, in the different verticals you're working within.
Absolutely.
right? So like some of the things that are important to them, and from a time perspective, you got to respect their time. And that was my bad. I dropped the ball there. I was like, oh my God, right now it's the run for the end of the month. It's February 28th, and they don't care about what I do right now. They're closing cars and getting the numbers up. So I got to make sure when I talk to them today, I apologize.
Yeah, and I think the last thing to bring into focus for people is one of the real tangible benefits of your organization is you are taking on tactical initiatives that allow the internal staff to be much more strategic about how they go about their business. You're serving as an extension to the finance department, an extension to the operations department, or when you're partnering with a company like me, an extension to the IT department. And that's one of the real driving values, because if there's one thing we've heard over and over in the news recently is hiring quality people is hard. But you know what's not terribly hard? Outsourcing those things at 25 cents on the dollar. And I think that's another conversation that you bring for your clients.
I agree. I certainly agree. And I think, to go even more in depth with that statement, that a lot of business owners aren't going to pay, a large salary or a lot of money for somebody to spend a lot of time simply reducing processing rates or spending a lot of time negotiating lower work comp rates. So the value we bring in is being able to do that. And, they're not paying an hourly rate. We can really deep dive and dig into these services. And we're able to partner up with that individual that, we're working with at the company that creates, ultimately CG Moneta Consulting as that extension or that arm or that additional benefit that's being brought to the client. Because at the end of the day, we're reaching out, we're grabbing your cash and we're bringing it back and giving it to you. We're giving it back to you. So we're not selling a product where, we have to get you to buy into, whatever this product does. Our service is very straightforward. It's cash flow. It's cost reduction. That's it, right? Your ROI is your time, and I understand time is valuable, and that's why we created the process the way we did. So from an ROI standpoint, it's very rare you're going to spend 45 minutes, a half hour, 15 minutes, and get the return that we provide. Unless you hit the lottery, it doesn't happen, right? Or unless you're a 1%er. So from that perspective, if you think about it, if you spend a half hour with us between a questionnaire and uploading some documents, and we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars in benefits, that takes the blinders off pretty quickly, especially if you calculate it from an ROI standpoint on your time and the time value, that it's extremely, extremely productive, and it makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think that's a great point for us to wrap up with, is what you do is the result of years of experience and certain aspects of your business you have templated. They are simple, they are repeatable, they are industry specific. So when you go into a client, you already know the 5 or 10 things that frustrate or slow down that person in that industry. And we're the same way. We service 150 different companies here in the Mid-Atlantic marketplace. Now, could you throw an IT curveball at us that we don't know how to handle? Absolutely. It's possible. But the extent of experience of my team, the extent of experience of your team is so tremendous that you're bringing not just a single viewpoint, but you're bringing a consortium of experts that can look at that company and say, I bet these 5 things are slowing you down. And the CEO of the company goes, oh, you're absolutely right. How'd you know that? Because it's what we do. And that's the closing point, I think, is that's what you do. You've seen this before. Now, of course, you're going to adapt it to that customer. You're going to scale it up. You're going to scale it down. Certain things apply to this specific customer that would normally apply to the industry, but this customer has. But that's a tweak. By and whole, you can lead with a consistent, repeatable process.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, without a doubt. And I think that just the experience And having been a fiduciary and continuing to be a fiduciary on a wealth management side, we built the company to be repeatable, at least the process, but also understanding that there are going to be times where you've got to pivot. There's going to be times where at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for your client. And there's nothing that goes beyond that. It's all about the client. It's always about the client. It's about their well-being. It's about doing the right thing. And, just from my background, it was natural to build a company that really focused on that and created a process that capitalized on that, both in thought and deed.
Yeah, so when you can implement a series of processes and procedures for a prospective client, what takes you an hour would take them a month. I mean, that's sort of the short version of it. And that's
Absolutely.
where the inherent value lies.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Well,
Definitely.
Daniel, this has been a tremendous conversation today. Thank you so much for your time. Before you go, please tell our audience, how do they get in touch with you? If they want to talk to you or a member of your team, what are the best ways
Sure.
to do that?
You can email me at dcovell, dcovell at cgmoneta.com. Go to our website, www.cgmoneta.com, or call our headquarters, 609-246-0304, and hit any of the prompt, and you'll get one of our team members.
Awesome. Daniel, thank you so much for the conversation.
Mike, I appreciate it, buddy.
Audience,
Absolutely.
Please reach out to Daniel. If you have IT-specific questions, please reach out to me. We'll be happy to help you, and we're going to have contact information in the show notes for this video today. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks. Bye, guys. Thank you.